Dean James, thanks for being with us this morning. This has been an area of expertise for you for quite some time, and we just cited that stat. But I guess just lay out for us where we are in this process of moving towards gender diversity when it comes to corporate America.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. We are in the midst of an evolution, not quite revolution, although there have been significant changes and suggestions and legal mandates to ensure that women have equal access and opportunity to participate in all sectors of society, particularly the boardroom. In some states, requiring a certain percentage of boards to have a percentage of women on their boards. But also just in terms of the pipeline of leadership talent that's coming into organizations. There were some studies maybe 5 or 10 years ago that said if we continue at the rate of change that we are currently experiencing, it will take another 30 or more years to have gender parity. So there's a long way to go, but I think the focus and the attention and intention that we're seeing in many companies right now are helping to make a difference that I believe will speed that up somewhat.
How do we bolster that pipeline, and how do we do it quickly and, I guess, effectively?
Well, we bolster the pipeline in large part by getting more people engaged in understanding what the barriers are and what are the impediments for young people, women in high school age experiences, women who are in college, women who are starting their careers. When we help provide them the resources and help them understand the broad swath of options they have available in their careers, that's going to facilitate the pipeline. Then we also have to look at the organizational structures themselves that make it challenging for women and young people to succeed. We spend a lot of time focusing on the D in DE&I, the diversity, which is the representation, getting people into schools, getting people into companies. But we spend less time focusing on the E and the I. How are we making our environments equitable so that everyone has equal access to participate and compete? And how are we making the environment one that is inclusive, where people feel like they belong and are actively contributing to that organization and feel like they can thrive and be their best self?
Dean James, I'm wondering if you can elaborate on some of these amazing metrics that look at basically how much females need to outperform, say, on their GPA to essentially receive the same feedback than, say, a white male for the same job. It's fascinating.
It is fascinating. It's disturbing, but it's also nothing that's new. When I was growing up, my parents and many parents of girls and people of color told them you have to be twice as good to get half as much. That hasn't changed that much, and certainly the psyche that young people have who recognize the pressure and the responsibility that they have to really demonstrate their competence is different for young women than it is for men in many cases. One of the things that we're doing at the Wharton School is really leveraging the analytics expertise that we have to understand what are the factors that move the needle in understanding who will be successful in the Wharton classroom or who will be successful in their first 5 years in a career. And we're finding some pretty interesting things, which we would not have known if we had not done the deep dive in understanding analytics. For example, we oftentimes assume that how you score on standardized testing is the primary metric that will determine success. And we have found that it's some aspects of the standardized testing, not necessarily the quantitative ones, that are most compelling. We find that interpersonal skills, the ability to communicate, is more likely to determine success in our program than some of the other factors. I think unpacking and really doing a deep dive in those areas will help us alleviate some of the barriers that many young people, women in particular, have in accessing education.